sound so high? I'm going live, Matt.
We're already live. I'm waiting like the
My
whole
bad,
time.
bro.
Oh,
I had to let the man out. I'm sorry,
all good.
but yeah, I'm locked in. Then he was just being not too friendly, but
Nah, that's
you
cool.
know. Anyway, let's go. I'm ready. No more delays.
All right, so what are we down to? About 45 minutes.
Yeah, let's say 45. Let's say an hour. Solid hour. It's 88 minutes in, so let's do an hour and 10 ish.
All right, cool.
12, 12. Alhamdulillah. I mean,
Um, Give me like 30 more seconds. Go ahead and get your mind centered.
yeah. Let me see if any of those people. Oh, I'm on the Akko and Nako one. I need to switch back to Desmond. You know what? I'm gonna actually grab some water. I don't need just soda. I need water for this.
Okay.
Test, test.
Yo, do we have a? I'm trying. I thought I put a handle in here, but I don't see it. I guess not. How? Wait, how we even have? Okay, never mind. All right. Instagram and TikTok is.
Matt, if you're saying anything, I can't hear you.
No, I haven't said anything. I was waiting for you to come back. Are you ready?
Yeah. I am ready. I got my water, got my notes,
All right.
and I am sitting down to get off my feet for a second. But I'm here.
Let me just make sure I got the comments up. What in
Ladies
the
and
world
gentlemen,
is
it
this?
is time for the Uncle and Knucklecast. Uncle Vision.
Who? Martin Kent? What are you talking about, brother?
Is this a commenter?
Somebody on YouTube, it seems.
It's good. We have interested parties. That's
Ah,
all we
man,
want.
this looks like somebody mentally disturbed. For the
Are they
record, I
trolling us?
I'm not a Christian. No, they seem serious. I'm not a Christian. So you're I don't know what they were going for, but you're barking up the wrong tree, Martin.
Read the rest of the message for me, or is it on screen and I just don't see it?
You have to look at it from our comments. I don't even want to say it out loud on the.
Okay, on YouTube.
Yeah, you don't see our comment box?
Oh, oh, okay.
I wonder why I don't see it in the live chat
Interesting.
yet.
Yeah. All I can say about that, Martin, is stay safe.
Yeah. Martin, I'm gonna go ahead and block you. Yeah. See you on your alt. Okay. Looks like Desmond's MIA again. Let's bring this video back up. Oh, there it goes. There we go. Am I backwards on backwards? Wait, why? I'm very confused. I am not. Yeah. Why is this video backwards? You know what? I don't care. Desmond, waiting on you, buddy. Supposed to be getting an hour in. We're not going to get anything done today. I can see that already. But if you joined us, I appreciate you being here anyway. If you're tuning in, I appreciate you. We're just waiting on Desmond to come back from wherever the heck he just went. And we'll be getting started. In the meantime, please feel free to listen to some nice nasheeds.
So you're pretty sure he was a bot or something?
Oh,
Hello.
you came back.
Yeah, I accidentally let out one of those dogs when I let out the Orkin man, and then
So what, we down to like 15 minutes now?
let's just start, please.
All right, man. Let me see. Let me just pull up my notebook.
Take your time. Sorry about that, man. It's almost comical how like perfect storm of events, one after another, and then I don't know what that means, other than I think. Never mind. I'm not even gonna imply. Let's just work.
All right. So I was curious. Did you end up in your closet or no?
Yeah, I'm in the closet. It's
Okay.
hot, but the sound's a bit better, and it gives me a level of focus that I need. The only issue is I got to stand up, which kind of helps. But
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know how much time we have, but uh, we'll just make this a part one, and we'll just pick back up where we leave off. Um,
did any of our guests chime in yet?
what guess?
Rashard may be joining us.
Well, you can see the chat as clearly as I can, can't you?
That's fair. Thanks for pinning that StreamYard too.
Yeah. Um. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalawatu wassalam Muhammad. I want to start. I want to start by dedicating this stream to my late friend Otis Holloway. Um,
Mm.
he was a beautiful soul,
Mm. Definitely a beautiful soul.
and it's moments like his passing that really underscores what I'm here for.
Mm.
Because the last thing I want is for somebody like Otis to come to me on the day of judgment and ask me why I didn't tell them about Islam.
Mm.
Otis was a great friend, and that's going to weigh on my heart for the rest of my life.
Mm. You ain't alone in that, brother. I can think about just going over his house and seeing life choices that even I partook in, and not necessarily judging, but yeah, a little bit of judging. Like, well, I'm not that bad. Um, and it was like a subtle thing when I was younger that kind of it just carried over where I put him in this bubble of not like a bad bubble, but I limited our friendship to certain conversations and certain themes, and it was great. But I do regret that we never went as deep as we could have went, just because we talked about everything, but I never broached the subject for whatever reason. So
Yeah,
it definitely resonates.
yeah,
In fact, my profile picture on Facebook is me and Otis in Mozambique the first time he went over there.
yeah. I saw that.
It was Rockhead. That boy has a Rockhead.
We miss you, O.
Yeah,
Um,
we do.
and may every person who listens to this just know that it's coming from a place of love. Um, and it is my heartfelt plea that you all take this information with an open heart and look into it. Um, nobody gets out of life alive, right? That's what they say. And you got to understand there's something waiting on the other side. So, with that being said, let's get to it. So, today's topic is We're rediscussing Paul. We kind of started or had a false start yesterday, but today we're going to give it an earnest attempt, and then we'll just take it as far as we can and pick back up with the next episode this Sunday.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah, go
I'd
ahead,
like to
boss.
start actually. Not to start per se, but I want to give the same intro I gave when you weren't here, since I've rehearsed it at this point. Um,
Okay.
and so it's not like necessarily going through all of Paul's life, but I'd like to just, for those who don't know, all right, let me back up, pretending like you guys don't know anything. So today, the podcast in question is about the Apostle Paul of Tarsus, also known as Saul. And so essentially, was the Apostle Paul speaking God's word, or was he a corrupter of the word? That's kind of the central question in my eyes and what I wanted to talk about. But I felt a great way to start, and what I laid out was kind of who he is pre road to Damascus, Saul, and then what happens on the road seems to be the most pivotal point. And so, where you came in, Matt, yesterday, we had just got to that pivotal moment of like the road to Damascus. So, for the sake of the audience hearing this clean and fresh, let's just start with Saul as the son of a Pharisee, because I saw yesterday that it seemed like we ran into some contention points that I think we can get through early now that we're both locked in. So I'm just going to give you my understanding and research of who I saw this Paul character to be, and I would like you to push back or do whatever whenever you feel compelled.
All right, let's do it.
All right, give me a second to find my notes.
I wonder if I can
Um,
share this within my call it.
this
Probably
doesn't
not.
seem to be all of it. Don't tell me it didn't save. Is it here?
Well, if you would like me to take the lead, I'd be happy to, because I think you're getting ahead of yourself. But I was going to let you start and then drag you back, kicking and screaming. So it's up to you.
I found what I'm looking for, so hopefully maybe the kicking and screaming part will happen sooner than you want. But
Okay.
essentially, I got him being born in Tarsus, and I find this in Acts 21:39 or Acts 22:3.
To
So
whom, though?
before, I'm sorry.
Born in Tarsus to whom?
Uh, well, I don't know. I didn't get that deep into the
Okay.
to a Pharisee. I would say eventually. It seems from my researches he was born to a Pharisee family, but
Okay. Okay.
um, but yeah, I didn't actually get too much information about his parents other than that they were influential members of the Pharisee community. And that's what I saw was like one, it seemed to be one early point of contention, is because at least you brought up some commentator who postulated this more fantastical search for inclusion, Paul, who is like ropey doping some female into getting him access to the higher circle of Jewish society. And that I had never heard until you brought it up yesterday. So I'd like to start there. Was who was his parents? Was he born? Was he normal born and just like followed in his father's footsteps, which is what my research said, or what do you think? And by my research, I will, in the spirit of full disclosure, my research entails a lot of Chat GPT and Gemini, and I go back and check them at times. But for this cursory surface level review, I didn't really question what I was seeing from Chat GPT.
Okay. So, in order to figure out who Paul was born to, we can start in the Bible if you want. But just know it's a mess. So this
Why you
like I
say
said,
that?
because there's a lot of different sources, and it depends on who you're talking to. Because if I bring these sources up before a historian, he's gonna take it seriously. If I bring it up to um, a more, shall we say, lay person,
Yeah.
um, they're gonna look at it a little sideways. And if I bring it up to a lay Christian, they're gonna flat out reject it. And
What
the
does
only
lay
reason
mean?
lay just
Forgive my
means like
ignorance.
it means kind of that, like uneducated, but more like specialized education. Like we're considered lay people. You and I, we're lay persons. We're discussing this, but we're not scholars in the field. We don't hold PhDs. We haven't studied this formally. Make sense?
Is that something we could incorporate into our theme? And only reason I ask is because I'm doing a lot of mission statement work in these last few days, and
I
that
see
seems
what
to
you
be
mean,
something.
but let's save that for another time. Let's just focus on Paul right now.
Okay, okay.
Um, so yeah, if you bring these sources up to the common lay person, because there's like, even though we're lay people, we've actually done some research, just not formal. So the typical lay person mostly hasn't done any research into this. Just think about what you knew of Paul. Um, let's just say even 2 months ago, or take it back further, 3 years ago, or take it back to whenever you consider to be the prime of your youth. What did you know about Paul at that point?
Not much.
Not much, but you had heard about him.
1,000%.
He's arguably the most popular person in the Bible as far as Christians are concerned. Um, Now I know they would probably say no, that's Jesus, but that's what they say with their mouths, but what their actions say indicate otherwise. Because as we're going to discover, Christians don't actually follow. I won't say all Christians, but the majority of Christians don't actually follow the teachings of Christ. They follow the teachings of Paul. But how do we get there? Where did Paul come from? Uh, let's see, what verse is it? One second, let me pull this up. Uh, okay, let me pull up Acts for you. Wait, I'm already in Acts. Perfect.
No, can you send me the link to my to my text message real quick?
Link to what?
To the Facebook, I think, or the live.
Well, when I'm recording, I don't have my phone available.
Okay. I guess I could do it from this device. Okay. Sorry, bro, for the interrupting you. Keep going, keep going. Oh, I can pull it from here. It's much
Oops.
easier for me.
There we
Forgive
go.
me.
There we go. All right. I assume you can't see this.
Keith is about to join us, by the way.
Who?
Keith, hey, good.
Who's? Oh, okay, okay. Um, Let me know how visible this is.
All right, bro. I don't see anything yet, but only because I'm on Slack. Sending the link to the StreamYard.
You told him the topic he wants to talk about, Paul.
I didn't tell him the topic. I just told him that we were live with the podcast.
Hey, Rashard, come on, buddy. Come on, buddy.
Shout out to the homie Shawty
Shawty,
Yo,
cuz.
you missed our shout outs to the homie Rockhead Holloway. But anyway.
Rashard, since I got you here, just tell me how visible is the screen right now? Do you need it zoomed
Oh,
in
it's too
anymore?
small. Zoom in. Sorry. It's I'd
That's
appreciate it if it was
that's
closer.
probably about as big as I can get it without having to scroll side to side to read it on my screen.
Understood. I can live with it. Oh, that'll work perfectly if you could do that.
What? Scroll side to side?
No, it looked like you changed the view. If you didn't, then never mind. But what I'm seeing now is perfect.
Okay, all right. Um, so we're in Acts 21, and we're gonna scroll right on past. This is Paul's journey to Jerusalem. So a little bit after what you were talking about. Let's go down, go down. Here we go. This is where Paul gets arrested. This is where we get the first clue as to Paul's true identity. So Paul went to the temple the next day with the other men. They had already started the purification ritual. What purification ritual are they talking about here?
Paul's trying to prove himself. I
Pro-
forget exactly why, but he like messed up or something happened, and he has to do something to show that he's still Jewish or like that he respects the area. I forget. something like that.
You're on the right track. So, do you remember who was in charge? Who was he answering to?
I can't remember, bro. I ain't gonna waste your time. I ain't
It's
gonna
it's
hold you.
a this is so important for us. So, the person who's in charge, the person who has charged him to do this task, is
Hold on,
James.
pause. What? Which? Can, I don't know how to get to our Akko Knockout YouTube. Can you just quickly tell me that?
What do you mean? What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to. He's trying to see view via the YouTube, not
Who?
the stream.
Keith.
Keith.
If
Oh,
he
I
just
guess I'll
search
just tell him the
if
name of it.
if he just searches Akko and Knuckle, all one word with the at symbol in front, our page will come up and it'll tell him that we're live.
Okay, thank you.
So at AQLAND NAQL, and we'll come up.
Should "and" be capitalized too?
It doesn't matter if you capitalize anything at all.
Got it. Thank you very much.
But
Apologies for
technically,
the
no.
continuous interruptions every
Yeah, man,
time you get on the roll.
this could have been done like 30 minutes ago, honestly. But all good. This is the growing pains. We're just getting started. So anyway, the person in charge who has charged Paul with this task of taking this Nazarite vow, the reason why he's with these other men headed to the temple, is none other than James. You,
Oh, the brother of Jesus?
the brother of Jesus, according to Paul himself. Now, scholars
Whoa, whoa,
debate
whoa, whoa,
about, in
whoa. I
one
did not know
sense,
that's what was going down.
yeah, scholars debate about in what sense James was Jesus' brother. This is a point of contention. But it doesn't really matter, honestly, at this point, because what matters is that he is the one that Jesus appointed to succeed him.
Do you
So,
have proof of that?
I mean, the proof is that he's the leader of the church. So,
Right.
yeah, there actually is other supporting evidence, but that would take us down another rabbit hole. For example, have you ever heard of the Gospel of Thomas?
Yeah, yes. It's one of my favorites, actually.
Now. Before you say it's your favorite, I'm not referring to the infancy Gospel of Thomas.
Oh, oh,
There's another Gospel of Thomas. The
really?
infancy Gospel is late, right? I think that's what, second century or later.
I actually don't believe you, Rashard. Is this true? Rashard, chat in the comments if what he's saying is true, please. I don't got time to
Rashad's not
fact check him in real time.
Rashad's not Google.
I trust Rashard on this one. But continue, continue.
Either way, there's another Gospel of Thomas that,
Huh.
by some estimates, scholars say that it could possibly predate the Gospel of Mark, which is the earliest canonical gospel that we have.
Well, what's that E word you're calling it? You're saying the Gospel of Thomas FS what? Ephagirium?
No, I said not the infancy, like the infancy Gospel of Thomas. That's the one that you might be more familiar with, the Gnostic writing.
Yeah, I think so. Where Jesus like heals that bird.
Creates the bird, yes.
Yeah. Doesn't he heal something with some mud at a point?
I don't know. I haven't read the whole
Anyway,
thing.
yeah,
He
yeah,
he
yeah,
does a
yeah.
lot of stuff, but no, that's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual Gospel of Thomas. Um, that
Interesting.
again, by some estimates, predates the New Testament, the New Testament's earliest gospel, which is Mark.
All right, I'm tracking.
Richard is arguing that Peter is the first leader of the church, and that's actually not true. And you can see that just from Acts. We can actually, let's back up. I'll show you. You can just read the Bible for this part.
Sorry, Rashard. Thanks for joining us nonetheless, even though you're working as well. Respect for at least giving us that one. I'll take care of the rest.
Let's see. Where's the one where he gets his trial?
Yeah, because I feel like people say James, but I don't know if that's ever been proven that
It
I've
it
seen.
is. It is. It is. Honestly, all it would take is like 30 minutes of research and you wouldn't argue about this ever again. Like it's very clear to everybody who looks into this that James is the leader of the
Isn't there
church.
a voice that says, upon this rock I'll build my church," and he's talking about Peter?
Yes,
Or is he
yes,
talking about
yes.
James?
No, he's talking about Peter because Peter literally means rock. That's not his actual name.
Okay. I thought that was the verse that gave people.
Like I said, do some actual research into it. I'm trying to find
Okay.
the verse where we have the where is the trial at? Do you know off the top of your head?
The trial of James
No, of
and
Paul,
John the
where Paul gets
Baptist.
called to meet with the, or is it in Galatians? Am I in the wrong book altogether? Let me see. Oh, whoops. Come back. Where'd you go? There you go. Okay, 1 second. I'm just gonna pull this up.
No worries, man. I should have just sent the audience on that to do it themselves on their own time.
Well, Rashard wants. He's the one who's giving pushback, so I'm just substantiating my claim, so you guys can see without my input that James is in charge. What? No, 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 not that one. Okay. Oh, so it was in the same one? Oh, it just all I had to do was scroll up. Okay. Oh, okay, yeah, obviously. Here's where he arrives at Jerusalem. Okay, so after this, we packed our things, we left for Jerusalem. Some believers from Caesarea accompanied us, and they took us to the home of Nason, a man originally from Cyprus and one of the early believers when we arrived, blah, 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 blah. The next day, Paul went with us to meet with James, and all the elders of the Jerusalem church were present. Now, why is it framed that way?
Because they're all elders.
No, but it only names James, and it says, and all the elders of the Jerusalem church were present. Why is Paul going to meet with James specifically?
Uh,
And
I
after
mean,
greeting them, Paul gave a detailed account of the things God had accomplished among the Gentiles through his ministry. After hearing this, they praised God, and then they said, "You know, dear brother, how many thousands of Jews have also believed, and they all follow the law of Moses very seriously." This is actually something we should touch on again later, but anyway. But the Jewish believers here in Jerusalem have been told that you are teaching all the Jews who live among the Gentiles to turn their backs on the laws of Moses. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something Paul's been saying?
uh,
What do you think? Yes or no?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay, man, you got to read your Bible.
Yeah,
Um, they've heard that you teach them not to circumcise their children or follow other Jewish customs. What should we do? They will certainly hear that you have come. Here's what we want you to do. We have 4 men here who have completed their vow. Go with them to the temple and join them in the purification ceremony, paying for them to have their heads ritually shaven. Wait, is this the full one? Hang on. I don't even think this is the right uh, account of the story that I wanted to go to. But anyway, we'll go ahead and finish reading it. We have 4 men here who have completed their vow. Go with them to the temple and join them in the purification ceremony, paying for them to have their heads ritually shaven. Then everyone will know that the rumors are false and that you yourself observe the Jewish laws. As for the Gentile believers, they should do what we already told them in a letter. They should abstain from eating food offered to idols, from consuming blood or the meat of strangled animals, and from sexual immorality. Yo, D, are you with me?
yeah, 1,000%.
Okay. Um, before I go into this next part, let me look for one more thing because I uh, really want to clarify this James point. Um,
Thank you.
I mean, it's really all over the letters of Paul, but let me just try and make it as plain as day. There's a verse.
Oh, I need another sip.
You all right in that closet, man?
Yeah, it's just hot.
Okay, it's 15 I'm looking for. 15 of Acts. Okay, here we go. This should settle it, I think, right here. The council at Jerusalem. All right, so we know what a council is, so that's the framework we're working in. While Paul and Barnabas were at Antioch of Syria, some men from Judea arrived and began to teach the believers. Unless you are circumcised, as required by the law of Moses, you cannot be saved. Paul and Barnabas disagreed with them, arguing vehemently. Finally, the church decided to send Paul and Barnabas to Jerusalem, accompanied by some local believers, to talk to the apostles and elders about this question. The church sent the delegates to Jerusalem, and they stopped along the way in Phoenicia and Samaria to visit the believers. They told them, much to everyone's joy, that the Gentiles too were being converted. When they arrived in Jerusalem, Barnabas and Paul were welcomed by the whole church, including the apostles and elders. They reported everything God had done through them, but then some of the believers who belonged to the sect of the Pharisees stood up and insisted the Gentile converts must be circumcised and required to follow the law of Moses. So the apostles and elders met together to resolve this issue. At the meeting, after a long discussion, Peter stood and addressed them as follows. All right, so Peter's doing his speech. Brothers, you all know that God chose me from among you some time ago to preach to the Gentiles, so that they could hear the good news and believe. God knows people's hearts, and he confirmed that he accepts Gentiles by giving them the Holy Spirit, just as he did to us. He made no distinction between us and them, for he cleansed their hearts through faith. So why are you now challenging God by burdening the Gentile believers with the yoke that neither we nor our ancestors were able to bear? We believe that we are all saved the same way, by the undeserved grace of the Lord Jesus. Everyone listened quietly as Barnabas and Paul told about the miraculous signs and wonders God had done through them among the Gentiles. When they had finished, James stood and said, Brothers, listen to me. Peter has told you about the time God first visited the Gentiles to take from them a people for himself. And this conversion of Gentiles is exactly what the prophets predicted. As it is written, afterwards I will return and restore the fallen house of David. I will rebuild its ruins and restore it, so that the rest of humanity might seek the Lord, including the Gentiles, all those I have called to be mine. The Lord has spoken, he who has made these things known so long ago. And so, my judgment is that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. Instead, we should write and tell them to abstain from eating food offered to idols, from sexual immorality, from eating the meat of strangled animals, and from consuming blood. For
Hmm.
these laws of Moses have been preached in Jewish synagogues in every city on every Sabbath for many generations. Okay, so from that, who is appealing and who is ruling?
Who is appealing and who is, what was the other question?
Who is giving the ruling?
It seems like Paul is appealing.
No, Paul actually hasn't spoken in all this, except for the indirectly they say Paul and Barnabas told about miraculous signs, but he actually doesn't speak here. One person speaks here in an appeal sense, and another person gives a ruling. Who appeals and who gives the ruling? There's only two people who are speaking here. It's Peter and James.
Hold on, I'm thinking among. Oh wow. So when you read Peter, I read it as Paul. Okay, that's what threw me off. Yeah, Peter stood up and addressed them as follows, brothers. You will know, not Paul. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Paul is the. I mean, excuse me, Peter would be the one I would say is giving the appeal to the elders.
The council, yep. And who rules on the council?
Shit, that would be James and company.
Not and company, it's James.
How do
James
we
is the
know it's?
only person. This is him speaking. And
Oh, wait,
so
wait, wait.
my judgment is that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. He
Go
once
back
he
up.
did,
Now it's gonna click. Just go back up for a second. Sorry. This is for the people that might ride a more truncated bus. Okay, that's fine. When they had finished, James. Okay, when they had finished, James stood up and said, "Brothers, listen to me. Peter has told you about the time of God first visited the Gentiles to take from them." Right. Okay. And scroll. So then, so he's yeah. So basically, Paul. I mean, James is hearing what Peter's appeal,
and
and then
when
he's
everyone
saying,
is finished speaking, someone stands up and gives a ruling.
"Hmm."
It's James.
Peter is speaking for the church. James certifies and commits to it for Jerusalem, says Rashard.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, Peter was literally the first pope.
No, 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 no. Explain it in your own words.
So if you go to court and the judge passes a judgment, that judgment is not coming from him directly. He is ruling on behalf of the state or the federal government, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. And so
Okay.
that judge sits in the chair and rules, and he makes a final authoritative judgment on someone's life. But his life, you're not being judged just by that man. You're being judged by the whole weight and power of the state. And
Well,
that man
sure, I'm not
stands as
saying
a
he's a
representative.
law unto himself, but I'm saying he's the one in charge.
He's the one leading, yes.
That
Or
was what I said to begin with. He's the leader of the church.
he's the one leading this decision.
This
Like,
decision is a decision by the
it,
council
right, that's
of
my
the
point. If
church
it's a
of
council of
Jerusalem.
elders, bro, if it's a council of 12 elders and we decide to delegate Rashard as our speaker, that doesn't
Not
necessarily
as
make
our
him the leader.
speaker, not as our speaker. We're a council.
Yes,
I get up and say my piece, you get up and say your piece, and then Rashard waits for everyone to finish and then stands up and declares what the ruling is without talking to anybody else. Who's in charge?
you're implying a lot, bro. Don't
I'm
this
not
is
implying
me.
anything. This
You're
is what
saying with
happened.
you're
This is
reading the
what
text and
happened.
you're implying that there is no other things that could
I'm
have
not
happened in
implying
between.
anything. I'm reading what happened.
I know you're reading what happened, but it does not say that it doesn't explicitly say after Peter spoke,
It does.
James
When
immediately got
they
up.
had finished.
Oh wow, so that shut me up. Where's that at? When they
It's
arrived,
highlighted on the screen. When
I'm not.
they had finished,
It's not
James
showing up,
stood
bro.
and said, it
It's
is. I
okay.
can see
Now
it.
it is. You have to scroll down. So what you're seeing is a little different from us. Now I see it. When they had finished, James stood up and said, "Okay, I think I'm convinced. Hold on. Let me just read Rashard's comments. I think it's relevant to what we're talking about."
Rashard, that's all I ever claimed,
Peter
the
is
Church of Jerusalem. At that point, that was the church. That was
yes.
the church was Jerusalem. They were trying to spread and stuff, but it's a very complicated field that we're talking about because what a lot of Christians don't understand or have not been told, I should say. It's not like anything stopping you from understanding it, but what a lot of Christians haven't been told is that Christianity has never been a monolith. There's never been a Christianity. There have
Come on.
always been Christianities, multiple communities of people who consider themselves Christian. So when I say the church, I'm talking about the one that Jesus started, the one that he established, and the one that he entrusted. Not talking about wherever they may have spread and branched off and split and did all their other stuff, because that gets very messy very quickly. I'm just talking about the church of Jerusalem, because we're talking about a small group of people. Basically, all we're talking about are the 12 apostles and Paul. Yeah, I understand churches are having letters being written to them, but if you read those letters, what you see is they're people arguing. And why are they arguing? Because Christianity has already fractured by this point, right? In the letters to Galatia, which we started on yesterday,
How
we
is the
already
fact that
saw.
they're writing? When you argue that if they're writing letters to other churches and they're having an active conversation, that the
No,
church is
it's not just an active conversation. That's like really underselling it. It's
How so?
really
They're literally
underselling it.
debating over the doctrine
I
actively,
think
are they not?
you probably missed a lot yesterday because they're not just it's not just a debate over doctrine. Because think about it. Think about it. Just take a step outside of the framework of Christianity as an objective viewer and look at what's happening. Who's the central figure in Christianity supposed to be?
Jesus.
Jesus. Jesus comes down, whether you believe he's God or a prophet, he comes down and he gives the words of God. Yes?
Yes, yes, I'm tracking
Okay. Should there be any deviation from that?
from the word of God. I think there may not be deviation, but there may be addendums,
Should there
amendments.
be any deviation? If
Oh,
God speaks on
deviation
a
from it. No,
matter,
sir.
should
No,
there
sir.
be any
No, sir.
deviations? No.
Not deviation.
No. So if you have 12 people who walked, talked, slept, ate, and laughed with Jesus, regardless of what your view of him is, and they all disagree with this one other guy who's saying different things, and as we can see from the evidence, which we're just looking at, that he's speaking out of both sides of his neck, no offense, but he's trying to convince them that I follow the law. That's what the whole Nazirite vow thing is about. But then we read in his letters that he's doing exactly what he tried to assure them that he's not doing. But we haven't even gotten into that part yet. But just look at the big picture. Who would have a better understanding of God's words? The person or the people who were actual companions of Christ, or some guy who claims to have met him in a vision after the fact?
Is that rhetorical?
No, I'm asking you because I don't want anybody thinking this is just my opinion. I'm just asking for some common sense here. Akal and knuckle, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Come closer to the mic. I can't hear you.
Sorry, just taking a little sit down break. I would say, and I can hear the little ones if you want to close the door. I would say, the latter. No, the former. The first. The first.
The companions of Christ, right?
Yeah.
What are the implications of saying the other way? What are the implications of saying, no, actually, Paul was the one who had the direct experience with Christ, and we should trust him more than we trust the apostles?
Well, for one, it's not true. Um,
Let's say
and
we
it
can't tell. Let's just say we don't know. We don't have enough evidence to tell who's telling the truth. But what are the implications of it being Paul?
the implications. I don't know if we can. I don't know.
It would mean
Excuse me.
that the
Sorry, I should have
people
muted.
who Christ handpicked to be his students, that's what disciples are, they're students, that people he handpicked to sit at his feet and learn from him failed to get the message. Now, what does that imply? Depending on your view of Christ.
It would imply that they did not accurately disseminate what they learned. It
Not
would
just not
imply.
accurately disseminate because they're arguing with the person who you're saying did, not you, but the person that somebody might be saying did get it right. So not only did they fail to disseminate, they failed to even understand it in the first place. If Christ had to come down and give somebody outside of the disciples a vision in order to correct what the disciples were doing, then that means all the people he handpicked, one of them betrayed him, and the rest of them completely messed up his message. So now there's an implication on Christ himself that he's either playing games or he doesn't know how to pick students.
I think Rashard's comment about the church being defined as a body of believers kind of helps us see through
It
Christ
completely
taking.
misses the point.
It doesn't miss the point. It just factors in the fact that
How are you going
it's
to say
not.
it's not missing the point when it's my point that I'm making?
Oh, I was talking about the point of his message.
Point of his message, he's arguing with me because I said that James was the leader of the church. And when I gave clarification on what I meant by that, he's trying to redefine church into his terms. But that's not what I meant.
Failed to get the message. Paul's vision was predicated on his persecution of Christians. Totally different reason for revelation.
It doesn't matter what you think the reason for his revelation was. The result is he came to blows or to bumping heads with the disciples of Christ. Are you saying
So
Christ sent out two different messages?
so that's what I was trying to get into when you were saying what you just said earlier. So when Rashard is saying the church is defined by body believers, how I took that as relevant to your point is that just as like no one person has a monopoly on what the church except Jesus maybe, because he is the
Right, but we
founder
haven't
therein.
gotten that far yet. We haven't gotten to the
We have
doctrine
gotten, have
or
we not?
no,
Aren't we?
we
Wait, wait, wait,
haven't
wait,
got, we
wait,
have
wait.
not
Hold on.
gotten there
Give me one moment.
because
Give me one
sure,
moment,
sure,
please.
sure, go for it.
Have we not already gotten to the point of realizing that Paul is going to argue? Is Paul had to argue in front of these people because doctrines were being preached towards the Gentiles that were different for Jews?
No, because it seems like you and I understand Richard's view on this, but I need both of you to understand that I'm not doing an internal critique. I'm doing a historical critique. I'm looking at evidence. We can use parts of the Bible, we can use all of the Bible, honestly, as historically relevant documents, right? It tells us what certain people believed. As far as who believed it and what reasons they had for believing it is further into the conversation, which we haven't gotten to yet. Doctrine is something that we is really down the road. Before there can be doctrine, there has to be an actual church. And the
Sure.
church, as what I'm trying to say, goes through many changes and branches and fractures before we arrive at what Christians today consider to be the church. The church fathers and all that other stuff. There's a huge mess in between Christ and that. And we have not crossed that mess yet. So it's way too early to be saying that this is how it's defined by doctrine. That doesn't matter. Does that make
I hear you.
sense?
It does. I'm
So
mulling over it. So it's not. It doesn't completely make sense, but it makes enough sense where
it's a historical critique.
I
All
hear
right.
you.
So when I read this document, I'm not even granting that this happened the way that it says that it happened. I'm
Sure.
just looking at information at this point. What I have here is a claim. That claim can be evidence of other things, namely things that people believe. What did people believe? The word church in the New Testament is translated. I'm not reading church from the New Testament, Richard. I'm using it on my own. I made a claim separate from the New Testament. I'm saying that James was the leader of the church. I'm not saying that the New Testament's quote unquote church was led by James, although it was, but that's a different conversation, right? I'm not using New Testament vocabulary or any of that stuff. All right, I'm just saying the church, from an objective historical standpoint, that Christ left behind, was led by James. And honestly, all it would take you is 60 seconds of Google searching to confirm that I'm telling the truth, or at least confirm that you need to look more into it before you debate this, because this is the consensus of scholarship. James was the leader of the church. Like I said, this is what we encounter when we're discussing this with Christians is that you have to get through the dogma. What you've been told all this time is one thing. That's a narrative. But as I'm constantly telling ChatGPT when I'm talking about this stuff with ChatGPT or Gemini, is I don't want what the theologians say. I don't want you to just regurgitate what the narrative is. I want you to think about this logically. I want you to look at the evidence and come to a conclusion. This is scholarship, right? Not that I'm a scholar or that I expect you to be a scholar, but if we want to learn, we have to approach it as scholars. Does that make
Agreed.
sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, whether you guys believe me now or not, or whether you have to do homework tonight and come back, James was the leader of the church. Okay? That is a historical, agreed upon. I won't call it a fact, but it's agreed upon throughout scholarship. Okay? That's the consensus. For many reasons, not just what I just showed you here, but this, to me, I would think this would make it pretty clear without, like, you have to try and bend the text to make it fit, like,
I definitely think. I mean, yeah, you
yeah,
have to bend the text and do a lot of implications. It's clear that he is the one that was chosen amongst the elders to speak on their behalf and to pass final judgment. Period.
Which sounds like the leader to me, right? Like, why would you say, well, no, actually, Peter's the leader. Well, then why is James speaking for him?
It's just it's hard for me to say leader when like I understand how governments work. I understand how big
Well,
churches, big
you can
bureaucracies
think
work.
of it that way. They are a theocratic type of like society, right?
And so if
They
you've got some passing judgment, I'm assuming that there's others that lead, the others that focus on the rituals of the priesthood. And so
the
at a
rituals of the
level,
priesthood
is there really one leader, or is there a group of elders
yes,
that
yes,
get
there's
together and
one leader. Think about it like this. Maybe you're unfamiliar with this, but there's actually multiple messiahs that are prophesied, right?
I actually did not know that.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Come back to the mic.
I'm sorry. I said I actually did not know that.
Okay, yeah. So there's multiple messiahs. I can give you four main ones, um, but some of this obviously this is definitely a point of contention amongst many people, but uh, traditionally in Judaism they were waiting for distinct quote unquote messiahs. There's the Messiah, the head honcho, the Davidic king Messiah, who's going to lead them into the glory days, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
That's who Jesus claims to be, although he challenges them on their presumption that he should descend from David in the New Testament anyway, which I always found interesting. But anyway, that's one person who they're anticipating. Another is the Levitic priest Messiah, which is what you're referring to, kind of in a sense, where the distinction between leader and priestly duties.
Yeah.
I see you, Clint. I see you. Um,
Shouts out to my boy Clint. What up, bro?
Hang on, I'm reading Rashard's comment. He said, it makes sense, but I'll just say that when my father was getting his master's in divinity and had all of the original texts in their original languages, first of all, there are no original texts in their original languages. If you're talking about the New Testament, we don't have any originals. Yeah. But anyway, with historical context, I definitely got into all of this with him. Yeah, hang around as long as you want, Clint. We appreciate the company. An actual scholar, and I was doing so as an atheist trying to poke holes. So I've looked at this from many different perspectives. I respect that. And I'm not just trying to defend the church or something. I just believe the words matter. Sure. In general, I 100% agree with you. Words do matter. Um, but I think with the clarification, it shouldn't be a point of contention, right? If I'm saying I don't mean it in the way that you're thinking, then I think we can just move past it. But yeah. So, because I'm not making a theological statement, as in like James is the rightful first pope. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the historical leader of the church was James. That's all I'm saying. So, what was I saying, Desmond? Oh, the messiahs.
Yeah, you were
So,
getting to these Levitic Messiah. Apparently, I never heard of this. I'll be doing some research on this after the
ever heard
cast.
of Melchizedek?
I've heard of Melchizedek.
What do you know about him?
Not much. I've just heard that name. I feel like there's a few, or I might be thinking of a different Melchizedek. Yeah, I
He's a
want to say there's a
very,
few. Wasn't there was an Abrahamic Melchizedek that helped him out?
it's the same Melchizedek. There's only one Melchizedek in the Bible. He's a very enigmatic figure, especially when you're talking about uh, like the Trinity and like because the way that people typically justify the Trinity biblically is by inference, right? There's no explicit Trinity anywhere in the Bible. Everybody agrees on that, I hope, unless you're a King James only, and in that case, you're wrong. Um, but there there are implicit or there are verses that Trinitarians use to imply the Trinity. They say, look, this verse says Jesus is God. These verses say that the Father is God. These verses say that the Holy Spirit is God. I'm just putting two and two together. That's their claim, right? But when you bring in Melchizedek, that reasoning gets real muddy real fast
You gotta
because
elaborate.
I'm about to. Melchizedek has no genealogy, no mother, no father. He has no beginning and no end of days. He is
How are you
eternal.
saying this?
You said, how am I saying it?
I hear you, but what is this from the Bible?
Yes, this is in the
Damn.
Bible.
What verse? I mean, I we ain't gotta read it, but just I'll check it later.
Off the
Just
top
tell
of
me.
my head, I don't even remember. I think it may be in Hebrews or Romans that Paul mentions him.
No stress.
Um,
I'll do the research on my own. But you're saying, wait, is Paul the only person who mentions him?
no, 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 no. Like you said, he's with Abraham as well. He's mentioned in a few different places, but
And you're
it's
sure it's the same Melchizedek? Because if I
yes,
remember correctly, I thought there was a debate over.
no. There's one Melchizedek,
Is there
but
multiple Enochs? Then there's multiple someones.
no, I don't think there's multiple Enochs either. I mean, there could be. I'm not saying that for certain, but to my knowledge, no, there's not multiple Enochs. Um,
Okay,
but
continue.
to kind of just settle the doubts in your mind of what I'm saying, it's it's to the point where some apologists try and make the claim that Melchizedek is the
An
pre-incarnate
angel.
Christ.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Right. They're trying to meld the two because they see clearly from the evidence he sounds a lot like God. Like, how am I going to say that there's a Trinity when there's this fourth person who has these distinctions or descriptions that sound like God? And so they say
Melchizedek.
he's a
I thought
pre.
Melchizedek was a king. No,
No, Melchizedek, he's a priest.
didn't he like loan money to Abraham or something? I'm sorry. I should probably like stop talking
Honestly,
off the
I
side of my
don't even
crazy
remember
stuff
that,
in
but
there. Yes,
that's
Melchizedek
not
gets
really
quiet and
relevant
kingdom
right
master.
now.
Okay, I'm
Um,
sorry. I'm listening
yeah.
though. Continue, continue.
So anyway, Melchizedek has no beginning of days, no end of days, no genealogy, no mother, no father. So that presents two problems. One, you have a fourth person who has who you could argue is God by the same reason that you argue anybody else, like Jesus or the Holy Spirit is God. But when you try and meld him with Jesus, you create a contradiction because Melchizedek has no father. Can you say Jesus has no father? No. So, uh, yeah, he's a very interesting figure. But anyway, the reason I brought him up is because he is, in some people's view, um, either a precursor to or the actual Levitic priest Messiah. Right. Then there's also the Eusific suffering servant, which, granted, is a kind of late development in Jewish theology. I don't think I have anything for that before the second century, but it's there. It is in their beliefs. Um,
Wow.
and then you have the Son of Man. Now, to the casual Christian, they think I just named Jesus four times. Um, but in Jewish theology, or I probably should say eschatology, these are four different people, and they have differing or they have uh, mutually exclusive characteristics, right? So, for example, the suffering servant is expected to suffer, hence the name, or even die, come close to death. Any of those would be possible. The Davidic king Messiah, on the other hand, cannot do any of those things. If the any of those things would disqualify you from being the Davidic king Messiah, according to Jewish tradition. The Davidic king Messiah does not lose. He does not come close to death. He definitely does not die. And so you can't be both. I'm
Sure.
blowing Rashard's mind. Either that or he doesn't believe anything I'm saying. But look it up. Then you have, who else did I say? Oh, the Son of Man. Now, we can't talk about the Son of Man right now. We actually already kind of started on it in another episode. But uh, although you can make a very strong case for saying that Jesus, according to the New Testament, considers himself to be the Son of Man, you can also make a very strong case that he does not consider himself to be the Son of Man. For one, he always speaks of the Son of Man in third person. Now, that on its own is not probably sufficient to make that conclusion. But when you read in context, it does at the very least imply, based upon the way he talks about the Son of Man, there is plenty of evidence that even if he does consider himself to be a son of man, he considers there to be other sons of men that he's referring to when he speaks in third person about the Son of Man. But like I said, I think that's a conversation for another day. But anyway, that's four different messianic figures that the Jews were expecting, and they all had different roles, most of them mutually exclusive of one another. So,
So has the
bringing that,
Messianic Jews confirmed that any of these four have come?
say again,
Have the Messianic Jews confirmed that any four of these supposed messiahs have come?
Messianic Jews, what do you mean by that? That's kind
That's
of a
the
loaded
phrase you
term.
used.
I didn't say Messianic Jews.
Man, we got it on. I literally just parroted what you just said. Maybe I hold on. I'm gonna go back and
Rashard,
read.
did I say Messianic Jews at any point?
Maybe
I
I
said
misheard you.
Messianic figures that the Jews were waiting for.
Oh, maybe I misheard you. My bad. Then I'm about to go listen to the playback.
Uh,
Anyway,
okay.
yeah, okay. Well, all I was asking was, were any of these messiahs? Yeah, my bad. I might have definitely may have misheard you. Were any of these messiahs? Have any of these messiahs come according to Jewish tradition?
Depends on which Jews you ask, because there are such thing as Messianic. There's two different types in my mind of Messianic Jews. There's the
Ah,
general Messianic Jews, who are just Jews who believe in uh, a Messiah, that believe a Messiah has come, which has happened a few times throughout history. The Jews, there have been plenty of false starts on the Messiah has come from the Jewish crowd. Um, and there's Messianic Jews in the more probably commonly known sense, which are basically Christians. Messianic Jews are they're Christians, not Christians like you in the past or Rashard, but the actual people who believe to themselves to be Jewish, but also believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. But after hanging out with the family of Messianic Jews, they're Christians. Um, so yeah. Um, so again, it just depends on what you mean by that or who you're referring to. Besides, but in mainstream, I would say in Orthodox mainstream Judaism, no, they do not acknowledge that the Messiah has come, and they kind of renounce any Jew who believes that any of the Messiahs have come, unless we wade into the waters on thoughts surrounding Melchizedek, because that's kind of open for debate. But um, the suffering servant, which of course is already a point of contention. Like I said, it's kind of late to the party, and the Son of Man and the Davidic King Messiah. No, it's to my knowledge, especially not, definitely not the Davidic King Messiah, and to my knowledge, not the other two either that I mentioned. But the reason why we brought this up was we were talking about the difference in government and a theocracy, where we have a leader, the Davidic king Messiah, and you have someone who's in charge of the temples and such, the Levitic Messiah. Right? These are two different roles, but one of them is the king and the other is a priest. Who's in charge?
one of them is a king and the other's a priest. I'd say the king's in charge, probably.
Exactly. James is in charge. James is the king in
And
this
then I think
analogy.
about Iran.
Who?
And then I think about a country like Iran.
What do you mean?
So Iran has a president or a king, for lack of better words, and he is the leader. He does run stuff, but the actual
I think you're
it,
letting the analogy run away with your mind
I just
because
okay. Yeah, I probably am. It just seems that there's a separation in powers, and to have one leader is yeah. We can move past this because I don't want to get
yeah,
us
because
stuck in
not every government is structured the same way. One government could operate like that. This one doesn't, is my point.
respect. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so after all of that, now we can talk about the subject, Paul. So getting back to Acts, we were in Acts 21, right?
You, your guess. Yeah, you gotta tell
Yeah,
me. I
yeah,
don't remember.
we're in Acts 21. So we read the part where he arrives at Jerusalem, and according to the author of Acts, everything was all gravy with the elders. Then, when the 7 days were almost over, some Jews from the province of Asia saw Paul at the temple. Now, a little bit of backstory here. Paul says elsewhere, I don't remember exactly where he mentions it, but he basically says that all of Asia just renounced him. Why? Why did they just up and renounce him? They didn't renounce Christianity, they renounced Paul. Why? Question that we need to answer. They stirred up the whole crowd and seized him, crying out, "Men of Israel, help us. This is the man who teaches everyone everywhere against our people and against our law and against this place." So that should answer
Whoa.
why all of Asia turned against him.
Wait, read that again. I will read it myself. Don't even waste your time.
All good, I don't mind.
When the
When
seven.
when the 7 days were almost over, some Jews from the province of Asia saw Paul at the temple. They stirred up the whole crowd and
Do you
seized
hear how
him.
wild this is?
I
Actually, if you
do.
think about it. Hey, there's
What's
that too.
wild to me is that you haven't read this. Like, how many times have you gone to church and they never mention this?
Mm. Let me let you finish. Maybe they have, and I just never read the specific words. But this is
Crying
wild.
out, "Men of Israel, help us. This is the man who teaches everyone everywhere against our people and against our law and against this place.
Wow.
Furthermore, he has brought Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place. For they had previously seen Trophimus and Ephesian with him in the city, and they assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple. The whole city was stirred up, and the
Pause.
people
Are we
rushed
just
together."
gonna? I
What'd you
guess
say?
we can. I guess we can let them have it for the sake of
Let who have what?
the Jews' exclusionary nature towards these homies from Greece trying to come to the temple.
Well, it wasn't, it's not just a matter of, oh, you're Greek, I don't like you. It's Gentiles. The Jews had a law that was supposed to keep them separate from everyone else for that
Mm,
exact reason. Not because everyone else is less than, but because everyone else was doing things that they didn't want anything to do with, like eating meats that are sacrificed to idols,
mm.
like a bunch of other stuff that are considered unclean in Judaism. Uh, anyway, before
Right.
like without getting too dragged down in that. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, they seized Paul and dragged him out of the temple, and at once the gates were shut. While they were trying to kill him, the commander of the Roman regiment received a report that all Jerusalem was in turmoil. Immediately he took some soldiers and centurions and ran down to the crowd. When the people saw the commander and the soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. The commander came up and arrested Paul, ordering that he be bound with 2 chains. Then he
Two
asked,
chains.
anyway, then he asked who he was and what he had done. Some in the crowd were shouting one thing and some another. And since the commander could not get at the truth because of the uproar, he ordered that Paul be brought into the barracks. When Paul reached the steps, he had to be carried by the soldiers because of the violence of the mob. For the
Jeez.
crowd that followed him kept shouting, "Away with him." As they were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who incited a rebellion some time ago and led 4,000 members of the assassins into the wilderness?" But Paul answered, "I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Now I beg you to allow me to speak to the people." Having received permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd. A great hush came over the crowd, and he addressed them in Hebrew. "Brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense before you." When they heard him speak to them in Hebrew, they became even more silent. Then Paul declared, "I am a Jew born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but raised in this city. I was educated at the feet of Gamaliel in strict conformity to the law of our fathers. I was just as zealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted this way even to the death, detaining both men and women and
Mm.
throwing them into prison, as the high priest and the whole council can testify about me. I even obtained letters from them to their brothers in Damascus, and I was on my way to apprehend these people and bring them to Jerusalem to be punished. About noon, as I was approaching Damascus, and blah, 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 blah. We're going to skip this part because we're going to come back to it. That's something you want to talk about, so I know we're going to get there.
Cool.
Now, the crowd listened to Paul until he made this statement. Then they lifted up their voices and shouted, "Rid the earth of him. He is not fit to live."
Whoa, wait, who says that?
The crowd that he's talking to.
Gotcha.
As they were shouting and throwing off their cloaks and tossing dust into the air,
Oh,
the commander ordered that Paul be brought into the barracks. He directed that Paul be flogged and interrogated to determine the reason for this outcry against him. But as they stretched him out to strap him down, Paul said to the centurion standing there, "Is it lawful for you to flog a Roman citizen without a trial?" On hearing this, the centurion went and reported it to the commander. "What are you going to do?" he said. "This man is a Roman citizen." The commander went to Paul and asked, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" Why is this happening? Why are they making such a big deal about this?
I was literally wondering if is there that many Jews in Rome?
There's plenty of Jews in Rome, but they don't have Roman citizenship. Rome was an empire. They didn't just hand citizenship out to the people or the lands that they had under their rule.
And Paul had citizenship
Paul
as a
has
Jew,
citizenship as a
but he
Jew.
was a Jew. I'm
Well,
a
was he?
Pharisee.
Was
Well,
he? That is something that we need to look at, because
oh,
what we see here is that he's a Roman citizen. "Yes," he answered. "I paid a high price for my citizenship," said the commander. The commander had to pay a high price.
mm-hmm.
And Paul says, "But I was born a citizen." I thought you said he was born to a Pharisee.
That's what I saw, or what he claimed.
At once, those who were about to interrogate Paul stepped back, and the commander himself was alarmed when he realized that he had put a Roman citizen in chains. The next day, the commander, wanting to learn the real reason Paul was accused by the Jews, released him and ordered the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brought Paul down and had him stand before them. So Paul was born a citizen. That means his parents are citizens. So first of all, it's rare enough for a Jew to have citizenship in Rome, in first century Rome. It happened. It definitely happened, but it didn't happen that often. All right. It was something like he said, like the commander says, "I paid a high price for my citizenship." He's in disbelief right now. He's like, "How did you become a citizen? You're a Jew. I'm not a Jew, and I had to pay a high price."
I don't understand that. Do you think the high? I'm just going to assume is that high price service in the military?
It can be, yeah. That's one of them. Yes, service in the military was one of the ways that you could pay a high price for citizenship.
Rashard said Jews could be Roman citizens.
I just said that.
Okay, I didn't. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I said it happens. It just wasn't common. We're talking about already there's about 15% of the population that's Jewish anyway. They're already a minority. And within that minority, there's an even smaller minority of Jews that actually got Roman citizenship. So we're talking a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of people. And not just Paul. It's not like Paul did it. His parents are citizens. And we don't even know if they're the ones who paid the price. They could have been born Roman citizens. Is it starting to stack up yet?
Something's stacking. It's marinating. It's molding. I'm not
Good.
ignoring you. I'm just sitting down because I'm tired of standing up, but I'm tracking.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know. Hmm, I never thought about it this deeply.
Now
And I
there's
have
another
these.
piece of evidence that I want to show you. I just got to find the verse.
So if he didn't pay for it and he didn't necessarily do military service,
We know he didn't because he was born a Roman citizen.
he was born a
The only way to
Roman,
be born a Roman citizen is to be born to Roman
Roman
citizens.
citizen.
That
So his
means his
parents
parents
already paid.
are Roman citizens.
Why don't you summarize the points so far? Good idea, Shadika.
Actually, it's not really the best idea right
I
now.
mean, it is because at this point I do need to wrap it up, and so I'd like a summary of where we are.
Well, that's what the stream is for. I mean, you could just watch it.
Sure. But there is also a value in kind of like summarizing everything we've discussed and what conclusions we can draw from where we are
All right,
in the
then how
point
about
at
you
this.
summarize so I know you were paying attention?
So while I was dozing off, it seemed though as though Matthew was trying to convince the world that Paul is an assassin of the Roman government. I'm just joking, Richard. Awkward turtle. Go ahead and play the sound. Play the sound.
What
Anyway,
sound?
the sound. So I'd say so far we've seen that our buddy Paul. Well, first we see that James was one of the prominent figures of the Jewish elder community, and Paul was in constant, well, not in constant, but Paul was in clear and constant tension with multiple Jewish leaders across Asia and the Levant. It sounds like, and so at the point where we see this man preaching, we also see him in contention with the very people he, well, not the people he are preaching to, but the people he's preaching of and about and spreading their message of and changing their message of. Because Jews and Christians obviously agree, but they also differ too. And so I think if Paul was now preaching, Paul, I don't think realized he necessarily wasn't. He was in the process of switching from a Jewish message, even though he is a Jewish man like Jesus. They are founders of a spinoff community. And so all I'm saying is, or all I'm seeing is, we get to the point where Paul or Saul is this guy who, Roman citizen or not, is in tension with the Jewish church as Christianity's getting off the ground. And the question is, where does he fit into this? Is he still conning people, or is he just passionate about his position?
All right, last bit of evidence I'm going to give you for today, if you got to wrap it up, for who Paul was. This is the letter to Romans, chapter 16, verse
Who
11.
Paul was?
This is Paul saying, "Greet Herodian, my fellow countrymen."
Herodian.
Who is Herodian?
Bruh, I don't have a clue, but that's a dope name if you're like a gladiator.
The name literally means little Herod. Who is Herod?
Ooh, Herod's not a good character if I remember correctly.
Herod's not a good character, no.
Wasn't he the one who persecuted Jesus back in the
Well,
day?
allegedly, yes, but even beyond that, he was not the best of people.
Yeah.
So, let's dive in here just a little bit.
Let's dive.
Hmm?
I said, let's dive. Let's dive.
I'm going to go down here to the actual Greek so you can skip past people's interpretations.
Excuse me, I need to drink some water, but I'm listening.
Okay. Greet Herodian, who was supposedly a Christian in Rome, a relative of Paul. He's related to Paul. Now, why would someone Christian or not Christian, related to Paul, have the name Herodian, which literally means little Herod.
Pause. We assume like the only Herod, like Jesus, there's only one Herod that could be referenced
Here,
if that
let's.
name is used?
Hmm?
Are we assuming that there's only one Herod that could be referenced when you're saying little Herod? Is he the only Herod of note in this time period?
Do you know of? I mean, all of the Herods of note are in the same family.
And then, were all of them despicable leaders?
It doesn't matter. The point is, Paul is their relative. Were they Jews?
Herod was, I don't think Herod was a Jew.
No, he was not a Jew.
Huh. Huh.
So, I think that's a great place for us to take a break. Nice little cliffhanger for you guys. Who is this Herodian who's a relative of both Herod and Paul? And why is
I'm going to
Paul
do
a
some
Jew
research on
related to a Greek or a Roman? Herodian. Things
Herodian
start to.
is
Sorry, go
Herodian.
ahead.
I'm going to do some research, but if
Yes,
I'm
please do.
remembering Herod correctly, can you not hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
If I'm remembering Herod correctly, he either way he was a Gentile of sorts. Are you saying Herod was Roman?
He was literally the emperor, was he? Or a governor?
I didn't. Okay, I knew he was persecuting blah blah blah, but I didn't know if it was Rome or like Persia, Babylon. I didn't
Yes.
know what empire he represented.
That's the Roman Empire.
And the last thing, and I'll be doing this on my own, and I encourage the audience is it's my ignorance probably, but I've known or noticed that the way lineages and name crafting in old times follow certain ancestral, like Desmond, son of Harold, son of Eugene, son of Walter, blah blah blah. But are you certain that for
No, of course I can't be certain. I don't have a time machine or a window into the past. It's just that the signs kind of point there.
but it's just one of those things where like the signs could point there or it could point to the fact that like that name is just used to like say you're a little asshole.
Sure, but we
And
have my point I was about to underscore is that we have a lot of these little weird coincidences that are just
okay,
all lining up, pointing in the same direction. So Paul just
interesting.
happens to be born a Roman, meaning his parents are Roman. He just happens to have a relative by the name of Little Herod. Like the it really starts to get like, okay, well, how far do I need to bend my neck or bend my back to make it seem that Paul was actually Jewish? When the only people who ever said he was Jewish were him and his students.
Now let that percolate.
Now, when we come back, we're going to get into the Clementines. Uh,
Oh, I'm so excited.
yeah, those pseudo Clementines or the Clementine homilies, as they're also known. Um, they give us a good bit of insight into who. Well, to be fair, this is the sucky part about researching the history of Christianity. And Christians may not want to hear this, but don't plug your ears because it's good medicine. Christianity that we have today is literally just the victors telling their side of the story.
Come on.
The losers were silenced, erased from life and from the record. I forget the dude's name, but this one of the one of the church guys used to do public burnings of the texts of these people. But so that
Mm.
means everything that we learn about of them comes from their enemies. And just imagine if in 100 or 1,000 years I had to learn everything about you from your enemies, the people who hated you the most. Right? But what we're going to discover is that there's a lot more evidence to support uh, or to validate a closer look, or to warrant a closer look at the early church with a new set of eyes. So we're not just assuming that what the victors told us is actually true. There's a
Right.
lot that we're going to go over that's going to, I think, start to open up a new perspective for a lot of people. I hope so, anyway. Not just because I'm not trying to beat up on Christianity, but again, this is about getting to the truth. And
Right.
we found a lot of evidence that'll help us put the pieces together where they belong. Um, because you can't hide from the truth. That's the thing that
Come on.
anybody who lies enough will tell you this. You cannot hide from the truth. It always comes out. But yeah, so that's gonna be it for me. Um, do you want to close out with the Al Fatiha for us?
I would
All right,
actually.
wonderful.
I'm gonna go ahead and stand up for that. Yo, little Canadian British kid, I'm coming for you, bro. You know who you are. You might never know me, but I do appreciate your efforts, inshallah. You inspired me, little brother. Let's just all take a deep breath. Thank you for joining us today on this conversation. Sorry for my coughing and snafus today, but thanks for joining us, Rashard. Even that guy we had the band. Um, I hope you get the help you need.
Yes,
Um, Clint, thanks for stopping through. And
we love you, Clint.
Nicole, yeah, we love you, brother. Nicole, I'm sorry you couldn't make it, but we'll get you back on. Daryl Spearman, we're excited to have you coming on to jump in this conversation soon. You'll be able to handle these weights much better than me. So I'm excited to get you on, Daryl. And again, Rashard, thank you for your input. 2 days in a row. There's this podcast I used to watch, and they would always say, um, I forget exactly what he said, but it would be this like phrase they'd give to like our returning guests who had the record for the most appearances on the podcast. And so far, Rashard, you are our number one guest. So thank you for coming back for some more 2 days in a row, and
I don't
even
know.
putting up with that crazy stuff from yesterday.
Clint might be up there.
Oh, actually, Clint, you might be our all star. Actually, Clint was the old OG. Clint, you might have been the first person to comment. So yeah. Anyway, in all events, shouts out for you guys for engaging with this in as open a space as possible. And with that said, don't listen to my words because they're not English, but just listen to your heart as I say them. And I'll do it in English and in Arabic. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Malaki Yawma'ibadin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. India syaitan mastakain. Sirta lazanina matakab galab matakabul alim wadalain. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, rahmin. So, all praises is due. All praises. The name of Allah, entirely merciful and exceptionally merciful. All praises is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. The entirely merciful, the exceptionally merciful. Sovereign on the day of recompense. I really got to marinate on this day of recompense and really know what that means.
The day of judgment.
Oh, speaking of judges, it is you we worship, and you we ask for help. Guide us to the straight path. Guide us to the straight path. That's my prayer for all of you guys. Pray that you're guided to the straight path, no matter what distractions and lures of the enemy come our way. The path of those whom you have bestowed favor. May we get that favor. Not of those who've evoked anger of those or of those who are astray. And even if you guys are astray, I pray that you come back to the source as soon as possible. Because if Otis's life has taught us anything, yeah, tomorrow is definitely not promised. So get it right today. Don't put off the conversations. Don't put off the saying I love you, Rashard, Matthew, Clint, all you fellas, because we never know, and that's why it's very important that we get on this straight path sooner than later.
Amen. Well, with that one, before I embarrass myself with more tears, I'm going to sign off. I appreciate everybody who came by today and joined in the conversation. Y'all feel free to click that link and give us a follow. Feel free to like the stream. And we'll be back on Sunday, inshallah, 5:45 uh, p.m. Eastern Time. So once again, thank you all. As Desmond said, I love you, each and every one of you, whether I know you or not. If you love God, I love you. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.
Oh man, I'd be
Peace.
remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the queen and the princesses. Rosie, this one's for you. I know you can't stand me, but I love you too, little Juju. Peace. And Talito, I didn't forget you either. Love you, girls. Be easy. Uncle Mescanin out.
All right, brother. I'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. Bless, sir.
Peace.